Okay, so we're going to start reviewing the so-called green booklet. So this is GAMSAT practice test from ACER, and I highly suggest that you purchase a copy, either ebook or if you do get it secondhand, at least you should get it on one that no one has written in so that you can get the experience of doing the problems. And I certainly suggest that you do the problems before you look at these videos. Okay, so first of all, I'm looking at Unit 1, questions 1 to 4. The first thing that's very important is that you scan the article quickly and to annotate, circle, underline things. You have to get into that habit so that you do it during the exam, and then it'll help your eyes focus on material when you have to find it again when you're looking at the questions. So certainly among the things that I underlined was the fact that female embryos located between two males in the second paragraph, and they call this 2M embryos, which is a little strange, but they go on to say that though remaining clearly female throughout and after development, they tend to develop more masculinized anatomy and behavior. So this is something to keep in mind that we'll be looking at. So now, just looking at the questions. Looking at question 1, and of the following information, talking about the differential development of secondary sexual characteristics in members of the same sex. So first of all, in terms of secondary sexual characteristics, you may know that the primary sexual characteristics includes the gonads, which would be ovaries and testes and external genitalia. And in humans, secondary sexual characteristics include breast development, hair growth, for men, low pitch voice, and so on. Here, they don't really talk very much about what phenotypes are one would see for secondary sexual characteristics. But they do talk about masculinized anatomy and behavior. And so I think that's what they're pointing to. So anyway, for the answer choices A, B, and C, there really isn't any information about that. Perhaps B, in terms of the location of the embryo with respect to the ovary, the fact that you can see the ovaries in the diagram, might make you think something or the other. However, the whole passage is about the fact that the development of these embryos differ depending on whether or not a female has two males next to it, or one male next to it, or no males next to it. So clearly, the levels of embryo-produced hormones is what is being suggested by the passage, and how their effect on reaching the adjacent embryos. So this is implied because of the changes in the development of these embryos due to proximity. So the answer would be D. So question 2 says, of embryos 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, how many are male? So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So let me take a look here. So first of all, when I see these 5 embryos, 3, 4, 5, and they provide some information that embryo 4 is 2F and embryo 2 is 1F. So embryo 4 is 1, 2, 3, 4. So embryo 4 is 2F. So what I would write on the exam is M with 2F. The reason is, the one thing that ACER loves to do is they love to tell you X, and then the next line they'll say, by the way, X really is Y, and then a few lines later they'll say, okay, take the inverse square root of Y, and then later on in the exam they'll ask you to do the logarithm a few times on Y or X. So what they like to do is that they like to flip the script on you, and you have to be prepared for it. So here they are calling this embryo 2F. So you have the word F in it for female, but the embryo is male. So then when you are going to annotate, you, instead of just writing 2F, which is what they want you to do, and then get confused a little later, write this embryo is a male with 2 females beside it. And so just by annotating this way, you will always remember that this is really a male. It's just that there are 2 females beside it, and that's why it's being annotated this way. And then for the embryo 2, it's 1F. So this is 1F. So instead of just writing 1F, I'm going to write male with 1F. Okay, so now I have my setup. Because this is a male with 2 Fs, that means this one is female and this one is female. 2 females beside this male. And because this is a male with 1 F, well, there's already 1 female here. Therefore, this one over here must be male. So now when they ask the question, how many males are there? I'm not going to make the mistake of miscounting. I can see that there's 1 male here, 1 male here, and 1 male here. So I have 3 males, and the answer for question 2 is A. So now on to question 3. Okay, so for question 3, I'm going to have to finish doing the other side of the embryos. So there were 5. Embryo number 9 is a female with 1 male. Embryo number 7 is a female with 2 males. So 2 males, so I do the same as before, put the 2 males beside, female with 1 male, already done, so here we go. So now I look at the question, and the question is, of the following embryos, which one will develop the most feminine features? Well, embryo 2, which is over here, embryo 2 is male. So I'm going to ignore that, and embryo 4 is male. And I'm going to ignore that also, because the males will likely not develop the most feminine features, especially when comparing with females. So we have embryos 9 and 10 now, and these are the positions for 9 and 10. So here's a female with a male beside. And so a female with a male beside is being influenced by the male hormones and having some masculinized secondary sexual characteristics. Whereas here's a female that is not being affected by a neighboring male, not above, not below. So this one would have the most feminine structures, sexual characteristics. And by coincidence, this one is close to the ovary, which I'm sure wouldn't help, but of course that's nothing to do with this. So the answer for question 3 would be D, and moving on to question number 4. So what would the primary sexual characteristics depend on? So now, we certainly saw that the secondary sexual characteristics are influenced by hormones and influenced by the proximity to hormones, which is another way of saying that the phenotype can be affected by the environment. And that had to do with the masculinized anatomy and behavior of the females. However, there is nothing to suggest that the primary sexual characteristics were affected, and in fact, there's everything to suggest quite the opposite. It's that the females, in the second paragraph, they say female embryos located between 2 males, though remaining clearly female. That suggests that there is no ambiguity with regards to the primary sexual characteristics of the organism. And so that suggests that the genotype is responsible. The genotype, the actual genes, are responsible for determining sex. And if you happen to have the gold standard book, if you go to Bio 14.8, section 14.8, you can do a review of this for background information. And also, if you've completed the exam, GS 5, there's a passage on intersexuality, which is also quite helpful.